Well, good morning again. Thank you so much for being here. We're about at the halfway mark, and we thought it was really important to gather together and share a common experience together at the halfway mark here. We were fortunate this fall. There was a contingent of us who attended the Women in Leadership Conference in Killington. It was hosted by the Vermont Principals Association and the Vermont Superintendents Association, and we had the honor there of hearing Ferene Paris share her story. Given that we just launched our district theme of storytelling that August, we couldn't think of a more compelling and powerful way to return to this theme and to continue to be inspired by stories than to invite Ferene here to give you the same gift we were really grateful to receive. So the title of Ferene's presentation today is Storytelling, the Heart Map to Racial Healing and Transformation. Through the art of storytelling, Ferene will invite the district to do a collective heart check. More than ever, leaning into the most authentic parts of ourselves is needed to guide us toward racial healing and equity. You will experience the power of vulnerability as Ferene shares her lived experiences, gifting a glimpse into the ways racial healing can transform our human existence. One statement I'd like to make before we transition to Ferene's presentation is that as a district, we've made a commitment to stand with and support vulnerable students, families, and staff members. And that commitment remains unchanged, despite any uncertainty that is presented to us. Please join me in welcoming Ferene Paris to the HSD. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am someone who moves around the room. So I hope that you can stay with me, stay with my voice. I'm just truly here to hold your spirits and to gift you a collective moment, especially as educators, because often I ask, who is holding us? Who is holding y'all with all the different things that you do? Thank you for the introduction. And for me personally, because it's always important for me to ensure that I'm inviting you to witness me the way that I want you to see me, I want to say again, my name is Ferene. I am a proud daughter of Haitian immigrant parents, Yolene and Ferene Paris. And I am in this point in my life, I'm in my 40s. And for far too long, I did not embrace all the parts of me because it would make other people uncomfortable. And so I claim it, and I'm just so proud to be a radiant Haitian queen. I am the founder of a storytelling organization called All Heart Inspirations. And it started in 2020. It started, if we can actually take a moment to think about where we were 5 years ago. It was literally right before the onset of the pandemic. We were in our groove, doing business as usual. We had everything all mapped out, right? And all of a sudden, we were asked to do a hard collective stop. And I found myself, at that time I was working in higher education. I was working at the University of Vermont. And I found myself being like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden everything seems canceled. Relationships seems canceled. Me just simply going over to my neighbors for our Friday traditional meal is not an option anymore. I can't go see my parents. I can't cross the border. What is going on? And I'm someone who starts to ask myself, what can I do to put something into this community right now that I have control over? Because there's a lot of things that I can't control. But I have me, I have my spirit, I have my purpose. And I wanted to move forward with creating something that would invite us to not forget the lessons and the moments of everything happening in this moment. And so I centered this desire of storytelling. And so I go around and I use storytelling as the vessel. Math teachers have their frameworks, English teachers, you have your authors, and for me, my vessel is stories. My vessel is stories because it's something that we all have access to. Because each one of us are the author of our own story. If I wanted us to all go skiing right now, that's kind of hard. Do we have gear? Do we have skis? Do people know how to ski? How we get into the mountain? But when it comes to hey, can we just have a human moment together? I have everything within me, and you have everything within you for us to possibly do that. It's just going to invite us to be a little patient, a little gentle, and make a moment to do something that the world often doesn't slow us enough down to do. So that's the beauty of this. And so I'm an artist, I'm a storyteller, and I'm an educator. I am one of y'all. I am one of y'all. I'm a product of the system. I'm a proud first-generation student, but also I taught in education for over 20 years. From your camp counselor days to your enrichment counselor days to working in higher ed. And even now, I go around, and it's always a joy to be able to immerse myself back with educators. So I'm here, and I'm trying to make a collective difference. And I say that I am here because I am in a place in my life that I can't take life for granted. I just can't. We are in a collective moment that we cannot take our lives for granted. Each of us is given only so many mornings to do it, to look around and to love. If that word love is hard for you to digest this morning, put something else in there. Each of us is given only so many mornings to do it, to look around and tell somebody that we care about them, to call somebody and remind them that you actually matter. Again, when the pandemic happened and I just saw so many relationships needing to pause, I just remember inviting myself to be like, look around, how lucky we are to be alive right now. Look around. And I'm telling myself, look around, how lucky you are to be alive right now. I don't know about you, but I almost lost my dad in the pandemic. Heart attack, and I couldn't even see him. Everything was over the phone, everything was over virtual. We have to stop for a moment and just be grateful that we're here. If there's anything I ask you to remember today, because we all have a purpose to be on this earth. I love this quote by Maya Angelou, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. As I said earlier, I'm a proud daughter of Haitian immigrant parents. I know where my ancestry comes from. I come from a legacy of warriors, of revolutionaries, of people who are seeking liberation. Liberation that is deserving for each and every one of us because our humanity is deeply important. And so I invite people to be like, what is your legacy? What is your ancestry? Because we all come from something. No matter what creed, what shade, what tone of melanin is in your skin, we are not in this room solely on our own accord. There are people that came before us, that sacrificed, that birthed us, that raised us, generations upon generations, right? And there will be generations upon generations beyond us. So we hold that. And even in this idea of ancestry, we think about this idea of education. This idea of all the different educators that have come before us, all the different students and individuals that you're empowering on a daily basis that will be a part of the future community. When I earlier was asking you to just take a moment and I acknowledge you as educators, I want to take us to breathe in this statement. You are deserving of being in environments that bring out the softness in you and not just the survival. Is there anybody in this room, like you can give me a snap or a wave? Is this resonating with anybody that you are deserving of environments that bring out the softness in you, not just the survival. I think about sometimes what it means when I worked in higher ed, and I'm like, okay, here's the assignment. You need me to do X amount of things to make sure 3,500 students feel a sense of belonging within the first 6 weeks of school, and it has to map up to these learning outcomes. And oh yeah, you're gonna cut my budget in half to still do 80 times of the work, and I have to have the report on your desk by next week. Like, are you kidding me? And sometimes, though, that is what is asked of us. It doesn't always feel that extreme, but what was happening to me was I was starting to lose the purpose of the work. I don't mind hustling. I don't mind giving a good grind. Again, I'm Haitian. Strong work ethic is in my core from head to toe. But I want to at least hustle for something I believe in. I want to at least hustle and do the work for something that is reminding me of my softness, of my joy, and not making me move so far away from what is anchoring me. So here's a question that I am throwing out to you as we kind of think about our stories and as we think about this idea of people inviting us to do work around equity, whether it's race, whether it's gender, whether it's sexual orientation. How can we even lean into wanting to do that work if we feel like people are tossing us left and right and backwards and like coming at you? Like, let's be real, I'm a Black person and I still fuck up. I'm a Black person and I can still do things that are very stereotypical. So, okay, white folks and everyone else, we're human. This is not gonna happen overnight. It's just not gonna happen overnight. And I'm willing to sit in that. And I'm willing to hold someone's humanity so that we can really talk about why is it that our experiences that led us to work at the same school, but yet we have come at it in two different ways. Let's just have real talk about it. So what does it mean? How can we do that to gift that softness? How can we see each other beyond our name and our title and understanding that there's so much more that comes to us? And I want to believe when we create space for those human moments, that is what allows the softness to come through. I think that is what allows somebody, instead of hitting me with such aggression, you would be like, wait a minute. I remember this colleague last week told me they're going through a divorce. I don't think this is about me right now. I think this is a tired single mom who literally got her life flipped around on her, and she's coming in a little hot. So I'm going to give a little grace because I remember her telling me that part of her. And that's important because often I think sometimes we don't want to share parts of ourselves because it's like, are you going to remember? I remember I was working at a school, and I don't know how many times I've told this school that I'm Haitian. And then I remember when the earthquake that happened in Haiti, the magnitude earthquake 10 years ago, I remember I walked through campus. It wasn't until 1 p.m. someone was like, wait a minute, Ferene, aren't you Haitian? Are you okay? And I was telling myself, I literally, every retreat we have, I literally start with, hi, Ferene, Haitian, so proud. And yet all y'all forgot, and there's this earthquake happening. I've gotten emails on how I'm supposed to take care of my Haitian students, but yet no one has asked me, the Haitian director, how are you, right? And so again, I want to hope that giving ourselves the opportunity to be vulnerable and do stories can do that. I want to bring us in even more because for me, I feel that the way that I try to invite people to wrap their minds and hearts around racial equity and stuff around anti-Blackness and white, it's a lot. And so what I do is I tell stories. I tell stories. All I can do is share with you what my lived experience was in this particular circumstance. It's my story, it's my truth. I have no reason to lie about X. And then what you do with that, I hope maybe there's a lesson that you can find that I kind of wasn't making this up. I remember when I was in college, my first year in college, I went to Stonehill College in Easton, Massachusetts. Is there a Stonehill? Why? Yeah! Skyhawks! And so I was so excited because again, I've told y'all, first generation student, my parents, Like, when I got my diploma, my mom was like, this is my diploma. And I'm like, you're right, Mom. I'm like, please. But I was so excited to go to college. And I remember the first week of school, I went for a ride with 4 other students from campus. I was a first year. They were 4 sophomore men. And they were 4 black men and me. And we went for a drive. And we literally just went 5 minutes down the road from our school. And then as we were coming back over, we got pulled over. Literally maybe less than a mile from the gate to go into our school. And I was sitting in the back, and I'm used to being racially profiled, being pulled over. I've done that before. That was a lesson taught to me in driver's ed that I get because I'm a person of color. So I'm like, okay, I know what to do. We stay calm. They're going to come to the window, and we just give them our licenses. And they were like, no, Ferene, we also need your student ID. And I'm like, what? Like, I thought, what do they do with a student ID? And they were like, we have to remind this person that we are humans and that we literally go to school. Like, we're not just, and I'm like, what? Like, hey, I'm the first year, I'm gonna follow your lead. And of course, the police officer going through our IDs, he was shocked that we went to Stonehill. He was like, huh, Stonehill? All of you? That's the truth. I'm not making it up. I'm not saying that every police cop acts like that, but in that moment, yes. He hardcore had a judgment of who these 5 individual black kids were in a very nice car, possibly connected to a very nice school. And I got into that school because I'm fucking brilliant. I was 20th in my class. Nothing to do with because all of these stories get put on us, right? So that's real. So then if I share that story, then let's have a moment to now talk about the different parts of race. What was going on? Yeah, there's the systematic oppression that happens in police forces. There's some history there. What does that look like? Ferene, you were driving the car in a predominantly white area. So what does that mean? We can get to the root of some things if we're willing to talk and have real hard conversations. And that is what this quote is about. The heart of justice is truth-telling. Seeing ourselves and the world in the way it is rather than the way we want it to be. Too often we stay in a dream. Oh my gosh, like our school is so inclusive and we do all of these things, but we're not being real. We're describing the situation we want, but we're not actually talking about what the reality is. This is a district that Julia has done nothing but speak so much joy about, y'all. Oh my God, Ferene, we have such a great team. But the reality is we are a pretty dominantly white cohort. Like that's just the reality. So then I come into this room understanding what it actually is, right? This is a picture of Ruby Bridges. Ruby Bridges is an icon when it comes to the civil rights movements of the student who is like the martyr for what it meant to integrate schools back in the day. And I'm putting this quote by Ruby because sometimes we just want to tell us the story that makes it easier for all of us to process. So the world that we want to see around Ruby is that, wow, she was so strong. What a resilient girl. Every day was able to just do what she needed, and she got her education. So brilliant and smart. Oh, kids, man, they're gonna save the world. Thank you so much. The kids are so resilient, and it gives them such character. And that's not the truth here. Let's actually look at what this is. This is not a glorified, resilient child who built a lot of character because she went through some hard stuff. This is a child who, for over a year, the majority of adults thought it was okay to bully her. Every day she got bullied by adults, yelling at her, screaming at her, telling her that they were gonna poison her food. People don't know that she did not eat. She stopped eating for a period of time. She would only eat food from packaged snacks because she was worried that anything else was poison because that's what she heard for over a year. And her mom was like, Ruby, come on, you love my mac and cheese. And eventually she shared. So we don't talk about the truth of this story, of how at one point in time, we all thought that was okay. We thought it was okay to pull our kids out of school. We thought it was okay to harass and bully her and spit at her. And that's just not what went down. And so you invite people to hold that. And the fact that she had to just be by herself with one teacher. And we all know, students, humans, we need each other. We need each other. And so what does that do to an adolescent? Every day I'm being told I'm not supposed to be here, that I don't deserve this, and that I'm so gross that people don't want to be around me. If we're going to talk about Ruby Bridges and celebrate and honor her story, you got to tell the story. We have to, because that's the only way we can then take accountability and responsibility around the harm and the different things and have a real conversation. I want to talk about education. I want to talk about the fact that we have such a beautiful opportunity for those who are committed to doing this assignment. I remember Googling, I wanted to Google, let's define, how do people define education these days? And there were a bunch out there. And I was like, okay, but if I'm a staff member that works in the guidance office, is this a definition that would be in alignment with me? Or if I'm someone who's driving the school bus, just getting the students to school, is this a definition that would align with me? And I love this definition by Alan Bloom, which says, education is the movement from darkness to light. And when I think about some of the most beautiful core moments in my educational experience, from the moment I was in kindergarten, shout out to Miss Kelly, I still remember who she was, up until going through grad school, there are particular moments that has shaped me as a person because there was an educator that kind of helped something move from something that felt a little bit harder or a little bit like I couldn't understand it, a little bit darker. And their investment in me invited me to move towards more the light. And I feel like this is a definition that we could all co-sign on, right? Why wouldn't we want to be part of the movement that is trying to ensure that we are moving the people that we are educating as much as possible towards the best version of themselves? We all win, us being the best versions of ourselves. Ferene, recently, I'm going through a divorce. So if you're like, oh, she's coming in hot. Yeah, I'm going through a divorce. And I'm going through a divorce, and I'm trying so hard to not let my responsibilities impact the children with stuff that they don't need to hold, right? This idea of darkness to light. And so I am trying to do what I can in order to move us through this moment. It's not going to be easy. It's going to come with obstacles. But my role in this as their mother is to move us towards the light as much as possible. Eventually, we're going to get to the other side, right? And it takes time. Just like no one should expect you to change the world in a day, right? There are folks in here that probably I've been doing this for 2 decades and I'm still figuring it out, and that is okay. Because life continues to throw so many new things at us that we are constantly needing to switch up our game and assess it and be like, does this make sense? But I, Ferene, really do appreciate what it means for someone to look beyond, do I know how to do my math? Do I know how to spell? Do I know all these different parts of history? Because the biggest thing that's really causing such harm in our community is that we don't know how to be in humanity with each other. It's really gotten lost. It's hard. I have a daughter who's in high school, and just seeing how friendships right now, and it's so hard for me. She's like, Mom, I don't understand. Why do people just stop talking to you? Can they just explain to you why they just aren't talking to you anymore? And I'm like, yeah, adults, we're like, I know, communication is really hard, Mala. Reciprocity is something that not everybody knows what that means when it comes to friendship. This idea of, I pour into you and you pour into me. And she's asking me these questions, and I'm like, man, I really wish we did even more intentional work from the jump about what it means to be a friend, from the jump of what it means to be a peer, from the jump of what it means when people abandon you. Listen, I'm good. I'm good if you don't want to be in relationship with me anymore. But just give me the peace of mind for me to just know what's up. Because I too actually want to keep doing my work, right? And so I think about this idea of education is the movement from darkness to light. And I'm so grateful for the role that we do get to play in that. And it's true. I stand before you today because in the 6th grade, I had a teacher who put a microphone in my hand for the first time. Her name was Mrs. Welch. And I went to a Catholic school, and in that Catholic school, every month, a different class would host the Mass. And so it was 6th grade's turn. And I was a quiet kid. I was a quiet kid in front of people, but after school with Mrs. Welch, when we watched her soap operas and I cleaned all her stuff, I was like I couldn't stop talking. So she knew my gifts. And I think she was just waiting for a moment to nudge me so that actually more people could witness who I was. So she was like, you're doing the reading. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And she's like, yes, you are. And I'm like, I can't do this. I'm going to mess up. She's like, no, you won't. And you would have thought I was going to read at inauguration or something. I practiced that little reading every day. I slept with it under my pillow. I don't know why I felt the pressure of I'm representing. And so the day came to do the reading. And I remember stepping up to the podium, and I did the reading. I never looked down at the book. I recited it all from the top of my head. I think I had hand gestures in it. I was just having a good time. And then I remember when I sat down, when the priest took the thing, he was like, okay, I've been doing this priest thing for a while, but I've never seen a little human do what you just did. And I tell people if I could have dropped the mic after I did that reading, I would have dropped the mic because I knew I killed it. And he told me, he's like, in that context, he was like, you have a gift, and use that gift for the different purposes that people want you to do. And it's fast forward, I cannot believe I stand before you so at ease with this in my hand, because in 6th grade, someone was like, no, it's time for other people to witness your gifts. I say that to you because I am 43 years old. I had Mrs. Welch as a teacher when I was 11, and I still think about her. Sometimes we will not be told you're awesome in this moment, but I promise you, if you're doing this work of this idea of how are my actions, my thoughts, the way that I set up my space, is it inviting us to be more soft than be in survival? Is it inviting us to have more light in the work that we do? Transformation continues to happen beyond their time with you. And it's a really, really beautiful thing. In the joy of storytelling and as a storyteller, I love that this district is doing work with storytelling, because for me, here are just beautiful takeaways that I know in my heart of hearts storytelling does. First of all, it does encourage us to slow down and to be in the moment. When's the last time you just got to sit for a bit and just have and not be on the go? And when you slow down, then there's opportunity to get to know one another. When you slow down, there's opportunity for people to be softer, to not be in survival. Storytelling invites you to live with purpose and to live out loud. It is important for us to know why we are on this earth. And whatever it is your gift. You own it and you do it well. For me, I love stories. I love community. So that's my jam, and that's where I'm putting my power. I have a person in my neighborhood, and her joy is just literally being the auntie for any child in our neighborhood because she could not have kids. And that is her assignment, she says. And I'm like, well, then you own that assignment. And I think that's what I'm inviting us to do, because when we tell stories, when we unpack our own stories, you have a better sense of what is it that you're living for. It invites us to take ownership over one's narrative. Too often, people are trying to say what my story is or what your story is. Too often, people erase parts of the story. I always say, like, I can't believe that I didn't know that it was a room filled of Black women that helped get the first man into space. The white dude didn't just get into space on his own. There was this room overpacked with Black women, brilliant, who couldn't even use the same bathroom as the man that they sent into space, who got no credit, worked in really extreme hot conditions. That part of the story was erased. And all we did was celebrate the person that went into space. That's not fair, because that's not the whole story. We can celebrate it all. We can honor the person, because that's a lot to put your life on the risk and go into space. But it's also a lot to come to work and grind 20-something hours a day to give someone just the right formula so that they can return back to their family. You honor their story. And it also just invites us to continue to be better about the way that we are communicating and comprehending ourselves and one another. It's a gift. And I want to invite us to be able to know that that is what our hearts are deserving of, over and over and over. I want to just close out with these little thoughts around, then, Ferene, why is storytelling and racial healing? When people talk about racial healing, one of the key components about it is actually storytelling. We can't get anywhere if we're not willing to actually unpack the thoughts and what existed in life and so forth. And it is important with racial healing and with storytelling, it invites us to be able to lean in possibly into some of these components. There are 5 components to racial healing, and I am not asking us to commit to all 5. I'm more just wanting to invite you to know that there are 5. And then maybe, throughout your year, it's like, where am I in my racial healing and trying to commit to one of these bullets? Where are we at with this? But when it comes to racial healing, the people work that leads to the transformation of systems. Racial healing believes it's us. I'm not depending on heroes to come save me. It's us. We literally in this room have the collective power to do profound change. And it's when we acknowledge the power of the people that leads to then transformations of systems. So we should tell stories about how the people do come together and what does that look like and the benefits that it gave communities so that we can anchor ourselves in that. Racial healing is inviting us to tell the hard truths about wrongs and present consequences. I can talk about Ruby Bridges, and I want to just honor what was happening that was actually wrong. And from those patterns and behaviors, what still exists till this day. And it's been proven by a lot of data that it is historically that children of color have a higher percentage of being put in detention, all of these things in comparison to their white counterparts. That's just what it is. And so you see, it's not the same thing with Ruby, but patterns and stuff still exists. Am I doing that? Is that something that's innate in me? And those are honest conversations you have with self. Racial healing wants to try to repair the harm of racism. And I think one of the biggest things that I want to point out is just this idea of racial healing is really then inviting us to do this idea of authentic relationship building across real and perceived differences. Like, let's just own that we have so many things that are different, but we actually have more similarities than differences. So if we can just honor and actually be real about that stuff, then maybe we could get to a more collective understanding. I close you out with inviting you to think about this. What parts of your story is shaping and influencing the way that you show up in the roles that you have? Because it does. It just absolutely does. Up on this screen, these are different identities that live in my day-to-day soul. And I know that those identities shape the way that I show up in my role as a storyteller. I know that. Me being a Black woman influences the way that I show up in a school that has, that if there's only a few children of color in that school, me being a Black woman totally makes me go out of my way to kind of be like, hey, what's up? I own that. And I haven't, like, me being a mom, when I was in higher ed, you know how many mac and cheeses I made? That wasn't in my job assignment as the director of first-year experience. But when you have kids that are homesick, and food is like the quickest way to deposit into them, but students would look at me and they're like, Mom. I'm like, I'm only 25. Like, how am I your mom? But it's because it's that energy that I give off. And I know that it comes into my role. It's how they perceive me too. I think about the fact that I'm standing before you as someone who lives with anxiety, depression, and PTSD. I was this close to having a panic attack before coming here. That's my life. And I own it, right? And so I do what is needed so that I can hold both. Because at the end of the day, I can't pull these things apart from me. But I do know they influence me, they shape me. And so I'm someone who takes the time to remind people, don't pause who you are at the door. Don't pause who you are at the door. I take you as you are. We're all trying so hard to do this thing called life right now. So what parts of you, what parts of your identity comes into the work that you do? In a beautiful way? In a transformative way? Are there any parts of your identities that possibly could give shadows to the way that you do your work? I'm an anxious person who's also an empath. So being responsible for an incoming class of 3,500 students took such a toll on my soul. I would go home being like, here are 20 kids that I'm just worried about. And it's like, that was the shadow. It's like, oh, Ferene, you have to figure out how to let some of this go, because this is not all of yours to hold. And so doing those intentional questions with self, what are my personal identities? What are my social identities? And how does that show up in my work? I invite you to be honest with yourself and lean into that authentic version of yourself, because if you can do that for yourself, then you gift that to the youthful person that's in front of you. That's what Mrs. Welch did for me. It's what I try to do so beautifully for my two daughters. It's what I try to do in the Burlington School District that I'm an artist in residency in and I'm so deeply committed to. One story at a time, we truly can make a collective difference in this game called life. Thank you.